Today's story takes us to the coastal town of Camden, Maine, where a 12-year-old girl was involved in a tragedy on what should have been a fun event with her family. Episode 5, Maiden's Cliff. Officially incorporated in 1791, Camden, Maine is one of those little coastal towns that people love to come visit, and for good reason. They're right on the water with great views of the ocean. They've got a lovely historical district with great shops, and they have quite a bit of history dating all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Getting where I was going this time required me to stay on the path, if you will, but fortunately it was quite a pretty hike, and you too can come out and visit down in Camden. So let's wander up the trail and find our way to Maiden's Cliff. Hello, I'm here in Camden on Maiden's Cliff, and I'm here to tell you a story. A tragic occurrence that happened in 1864 that led to the creation of the monument you see behind me, the giant cross, which also created its own ghost story. Let me tell you all about it. So let's start with the history part. In 1864, on May 7th, Eleanor French and her family climbed up the mountain with their teacher for a fun day of hiking, which I just did the hike. I wouldn't bring my kids up here. It's quite a haul. So they got here, beautiful views, as you might be able to see behind me. They were playing, they were running around, they were having a great time when Eleanor's hat got taken by the wind. She chased after it right to the edge, but caught it. She sat down on the rock to put it back on. Well, her sister had said something. The family turned to look at her sister, they heard a noise and looked back, and Eleanor was no longer there. Unfortunately, she had slipped off the rock and fallen over 300 feet down to the bottom of Maiden's Cliff. Despite having no broken bones, she didn't survive the night. Her injuries were just too grievous. It's not very clear when exactly the ghost story started. The tragic death of Eleanor French seems like one of those things that would leave a spirit to be wandering in the last place they knew. People have reported seeing a ghostly girl playing up on the cliffs amongst the rocks and trees, almost like she's looking for someone to play with. Other people have reportedly seen a ghostly hat racing towards the edge of the cliff, with no one chasing behind it. But probably the saddest thing, the worst thing, that's been reported up on the cliffs is a sound of a girl screaming right over the wind. Perhaps it's the last thing that Eleanor left as an impression upon the world, and it's being repeated in a terrible, terrible cycle. So the ghost story portion is pretty scary, but this particular monument here marks the passage of the real Eleanor French and the tragedy that befell her. There are things like this you might see on the sides of roads or on top of mountains or in strange places. These monuments are to mark where someone was tragically lost, and it's a way to preserve their memory. This is actually the third of these monuments for her. The first one, unfortunately, was built in the early 1900s and collapsed not too long thereafter. In the 1960s, a second one was erected in her honor, but that unfortunately fell to pieces around the 1980s. And in the early to mid-1980s, this current one was pushed in. And this one's made of much better materials. It's much stronger. It's actually lashed by steel cables to the side, so it doesn't get lost. So when you see these on the side of the road, take a moment and remember, they're not just something to look at. They're here to remember somebody important.